Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Good News Gang. And I am Pastor Matt West, and I serve at Marble Memorial United Methodist Church in Milan, Michigan. And I am joined again by some familiar faces and some new ones as well. But let's say hello to Pastor Jackie Ranieri from Clare UMC, Pastor Curtis Clark from Marysville UMC, and making a return to the Good News Gang, Pastor Kim Metzer from Hope UMC in Hastings, and a good friend and colleague of ours who has joined us for this go-around, Pastor Matt Osborne from Ishpeming Wesley UMC, all the way in the UP.
Hey.
Well, it is good to be back, and it is good to have another opportunity to share with everybody. We hope you haven't missed us too much or forgotten about us, and we've brought something different this go around to share with everybody as we enter into the Advent season. And so what we thought we would do is each take a week to share something special, and that would be our favorite Christmas hymn or carol, and talk about it. And so this week, our friend, Pastor Matt, has decided to share with us what he finds most enjoyable in this season to sing. So I'm going to hand it over to him.
All right. Thanks, Pastor Matt. I appreciate that. We're going to have to get real careful about how we say our names. We're going to have to come up with a nickname at some point to do these.
Which one are you talking to?
So taking a look at this time of season, there are so many, and part of the challenge was picking one that really stood out, because this is just a great season for music, whether we're looking real deep theologically or we're looking at something that might pop through on a contemporary radio station. So having said that, I went to one of our founding fathers of Methodism, if you will, deep in our heritage, and looked at a hymn written by Charles Wesley. It's number 240 in our UMC hymnal, but so many people are familiar with it. It's called Hark, the Herald Angels Sing. And there are a couple of reasons about why I like this song, and I can share about that. But I wanted to give a brief background about it so we kind of know what maybe brought it to the table. As I mentioned, as we all join in the United Methodist Church, and I'm sure we'll have some friends joining us that aren't necessarily United Methodist, but it's important for our heritage to know where we came from, right? And so to know that one of the founding fathers of Methodism, Charles Wesley, who is John Wesley's brother, wrote a lot of hymns over his career. And this is one of them that's kind of has stood the test of time, not just because of the Christmas season, but in the way it was commissioned. And so taking a look at Hark the Herald Angels Sing, number 240, it's 3 verses. And first of all, I love that because it gets right to the point. It doesn't drown out forever. You're not out of breath by the time you sing it. So it's a really good one. And it's got
verse 6. No.
We're going to just sing all of them. That's 1 through 3. And so it's nice because it gets to the point. It comes from inspired by Luke's gospel account, chapter 2, verses 8 through 14. So it's got that great theological meaning, and it kind of moves along. It's not a real somber song, which is interesting because when Charles Wesley originally wrote it, he wrote it to be a little bit more somber or a little bit more solemn. So it's interesting that there's some gusto behind it usually when we sing it. And so it was written in 19. It was written in 1739. And it was for a collection of songs and hymns and sacred poems. And it was commissioned to be a part of this because they were trying to get a songbook or a poem book to be passed out widely spread. And so it's interesting to know that this was a commissioned job, that it was specifically meant to pass around to be celebrated during Christmas. And so George Whitefield, who was also one of a founding father of Methodism in Wesley's small group, kind of tweaked it a little bit, right? Kind of messed with it, put a fresh coat of paint on it, and changed it up to be a little bit more like we would sing it today. And so I'm not a great singer. I can carry a tune in a bucket. And so I kind of thought, could I maybe sing a lyric from what it was supposed to be? You're going to recognize what it was going to be, but it was written a little bit different. I think it's important because the opening line originally written by Charles Wesley says, "Hark how all the welkin rings, glory to the King of Kings." And then that's it. And I think it's interesting because it was composed to say the welkin rings. And welkin means clouds or heaven. So it's talking about those hosts. And it's not really a term we use now, but it's interesting to know that some of that was still there, saying glory to the King of Kings, which is so richly born in Scripture. And so George Whitefield came by and kind of put a fresh coat of paint on it. And we had Hark, the Herald Angels Sing from George Whitefield, but it still said glory to the King of Kings. It wasn't until a little bit later on, really, closer to the 1900s, that we actually got glory to the newborn king, maybe a little bit more regarding the infant child than who he would grow to become. So I find that really interesting. There was a German composer that originally put music to it, Felix Mendelssohn, and I thought it was really interesting to find out where all of our traditional songs come from. And there are so many of them that are influenced from a German ethnic background. And it was interesting to know that Felix was considered a prodigy when he was a young child, but his parents didn't really foster that gift of music. And so he kind of came along a little bit into his own when he could make his own decisions. So it's interesting to know that someone that put such a great melody to one of our favorite songs and traditional songs was sort of held back from doing that. And it just kind of reminds me that behind this is God's work continuing to push us like he does in our everyday life that would come to fruition in this song. So anyway, I do want to direct everybody, if they get a second, if they really find this interesting, and he's not like, I'll land the plane guy, is if you go to the Wikipedia page, it's a really neat it's a 3-column row that they have there if you want to check it out. But Google Hark, the Herald Angels Sing, and it'll tell you what Charles Wesley's original song was written as, side by side with what George Whitefield did, side by side with what we normally sing now since like the 1950s or 60s. So it's really neat to see some of those changes. And I think seeing that comparison reminds me of how rich this song is. Because, and I'm going to throw a contemporary example out there. Dolly Parton sang, "I Will Always Love You." It's a country song, and it was real for her. It was a true story. And maybe that's why I really like the stories behind the songs that tell a story, because I'm a country fan, is Dolly Parton sang this song, and she was moderately successful with it. But I think statistically, we could argue that when Whitney Houston redid it, the thing exploded. It became this huge single. It became a soundtrack to a movie. So arguably, statistically, she actually had more success with Dolly Parton's song than she did herself as sort of a remix or a new interpretation. And so when we look at songs like this, we can see that it was good, but so many people loved it that they wanted to put their own spin on it, and it eventually comes to the way we have it now. And I just think that's why this song seems like, to me, stands the test of time, because people just kept saying it can be better, but it can be better, it can be better. And I guess maybe I want to talk to some of my curmudgeon friends that are just like, well, if there was nothing wrong with Dolly's song, then why did that Whitney Houston have to come along and remake it? It was just fine. Well, same could be said for a great song like Hark, the Herald Angels Sing. We're singing the remix. We're singing the Whitney Houston version, if you will, and that's the one that most of us know. So, let's not change the artistic interpretation of what people have to offer, because they really are paying homage to such great songs when they cover them. They're just trying to put their own spin on it so it can be relevant for today. So that's kind of why I picked Hark, the Herald Angels Sing. I would love to hear what you guys think, if maybe there's a favorite verse. So I can take a breath and a drink and have you guys chime in, because I know I'm not the only one who must like this song.
So I am curious, when did you realize like this was a favorite of yours, or when did you go, I really love this one and I could hear it every Christmas?
Well, I think it was as I was a senior high youth member. We had a pastor and pastoral change, and his wife was in charge of our youth group. And so he would, of course, because his wife was like, "Come along, dear." So the pastor was there too. And the pastor's name is Dan Bowman. And he was not only my home pastor and mentor growing up, but he also has continued to be my mentor as I went into professional pastoral ministry. And so whenever it was his turn to say something, it was always like the pastor didn't ask much of us. A pastor was always kind of putting other people forward. And so he happened to mention off the cuff that he really, really liked this song because it was important to him as well. And so naturally I was like, wow, well, I can play the trumpet in band. Maybe I could learn how to play that. So we played it for a Christmas thing. So I didn't come along till a teenage. Yeah, right. There's only 3 buttons. It's not that hard. It's one of the easiest instruments. So it's it kind of came along to wanting to honor him and say thank you to you and give a gift that way. And before I knew it, we were just singing it every year and during the seasons and the candlelight services. And it just became one of those songs that you can't whisper this one. It's the angels proclaiming, there's an explanation point in it. And so it kind of gets somebody like me who doesn't really have a good library voice, I get to sing out. And so it's really a neat proclamation because Christmas is a great time of year. It's a great reason for the season. And this song just lets you kind of belt it out. But you don't have to take a real big breath like some of those songs and be like, oh, you can just get to it and go through it and get moving on. But I've seen plays, some remixes, several videos put to music, pentatonics. I can't get enough of hearing the different variations of this song from pop to country, all over the place. But I think at the end of the day, I really like it when we can sing it, in the life of the church together in sort of that traditional way. So
I believe I heard there's a bootleg version sang by Pastor Jackie somewhere out there that if you search hard enough, you might be able to find it.
Oh, do tell.
Yeah, please
Just rumor I heard.
Trivia.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you make the great, the great point of that over the last 300 years, this song has been covered. And we don't usually think of that term in church songs,
Right.
but I was listening to to a few different versions before we came on too. One on just like someone playing a acoustic guitar, kind of at an upbeat pace. And I think that the fact that it can be done in so many different ways really shows that this song is one of those that it stands the test of time. And that's a worn out phrase, but it really does. It's like you say, it's good theology. The Wesleys were known for using songs to teach. You think back to when these songs were written, there was a lot of people who perhaps didn't read, and so this was a way for them to hear sound good biblical teaching in song, and for them to learn some of the doctrine of our faith and some of the important parts of our faith through song. And this is one of those, because you look at every line and it's solid. It's just solid teaching.
That's why it's important to continue to use these songs in addition to the contemporary songs, which speak to people today. I use songs every week as examples of what I'm trying to teach on. And I agree that standing the test of time is kind of a cliche, worn out phrase, but there really are so few things that stand the test of time. And this is one of them.
Well, I may be thinking of a different carol or what, but when Charles Wesley wrote this wasn't necessarily intended to be a Christmas song, was it? Or am I thinking of some other?
I think you're thinking of not Joy to the World. Was it Joy to the World? That's about the second coming of Christ. There's one of them that Wesley wrote that is often sung at Christmas time.
Right.
Right, but it wasn't meant to be a Christmas song.
Right.
It was meant to be the proclamation of Christ coming again.
As you can tell, I did my research before this video. So
John specifically actually commissioned Charles to write this for the Christmas season. So yeah, it was
okay.
This one. So it's and can I tell you what's interesting too is that when Charles wrote it, because of course he was writing the lyrics, he often didn't always write the music to it. He was using something that's already established. And so Charles actually wrote this with the intention that it would be sang to the tune of Christ the Lord is risen today.
Oh.
So you want a tongue twister, try singing this well-known melody we know now to that, and it'll make you laugh a little bit trying to keep it straight.
Go for it, Matt. We're waiting.
I tried to work it out, and I'm like, I'm never going to get through it. It's going to be...
Well, with the other one, try this.
Yeah, you kind of set the bar really high. I will tell everybody now, I will not be singing. Nobody wants that.
We'll dub it in.
Yeah.
I think I've used this to open Christmas Eve worship probably almost every year that I've planned worship on Christmas Eve. And I love, in every time there's always this little pause before that third verse starts, and the piano and the organ start to kind of build up, and it's just this release of that last verse that comes out, and it's just it almost brings you, for me, it would almost bring us to tears, bring me to tears, just proclaiming, hail the heaven-born Prince of Peace, hail the Son of Righteousness. I mean, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a moment and go back. You'd offered a reference to the Gospel of Luke. What was that part of Luke again that you had mentioned in relationship to this hymn, Carol?
Luke chapter 2, verses 8 through 14.
All righty. Well, if you don't mind, I'll read it real quick.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'm going to read from the New International Version. It says, "And there were shepherds living out in the fields nearby, keeping watch over their flocks at night. An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But the angel said to them, 'Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloth and lying in a manger.' Suddenly a great company of the heavenly host appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, 'Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests.'" So let's just dive into that a little bit in terms of, what the connection is or what the meaning might be for us when we hear that scripture as well as the song. Okay, so moving.
And the room goes dead. Oh,
I remember, as a little girl going to church, Christmas Eve, of course, hearing the song, like you said, Curtis, it was at the beginning, but Matt Osborne, you said something about the exclamation point. And to me, it was like, Curtis, you're saying it brings you to tears because, as an adult, we know that, more that we're more into that meaning. But as a little girl, it brought me such joy, laughter, because we couldn't wait to get to that exclamation point. When I found out what an exclamation point was in school, that was just like, oh, we can say it loud, So to me, again, I don't have that library voice. I think mine kind of carries as well. I'll admit it. But I just remember, like, I could just bellow out that, out that word, just like, and make that emphasis on that exclamation point. And to me, that song, I hear it and I always just smile because I remember that memory standing next to my grandfather, who was a beautiful singer, traveled around singing at different churches. And here I am with this, frog voice bellowing out that exclamation point. And it just brought such joy to me because it was just like, he always had his arm around my shoulder or holding my hand, and he'd really get into it with me. And it was just like, to me, that was love. It was love. It was joy. It was like, wow, this is Christmas Eve. And it really wasn't much into the lyrics itself, what the words was, but it was that exclamation point. So you really brought that memory for me. So thank you. Because it was just kind of triggered that, where it was just like, as silly as that sounds, I mean, that's what triggers that song. I always remember that part with, was that. So thank you for that.
All right, I'm gonna call it as it is, in the fact that, think about normal Sundays. There'll be hymns that a lot of people know, a lot of people sing, and then there's always those hymns where it's a low murmur and nobody wants to even try and touch it. But then come Christmas time, everybody's a choir singer, right, because they know the song, and so it's like, whether you can sing or not, you're singing "Hark, the Herald Angels Sings" at the top of your lungs because you think you can sing as if you were a part of, I don't know, whatever grand choir out there is touring around.
Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
They all become Whitney Houston. Come on.
Yes,
right.
We do.
Like, I know this one. Hark, the Herald Angels Sing.
And
everybody's like, yeah.
That's kind of the cool thing too, because this song gets a lot of play right now on secular radio stations.
Mm-hmm.
You put on
all the singers have a Christmas album.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so it's, the message of Christ's birth, of the angels proclaiming, the birth of Christ is still seeping into our culture all these years later through music.
Yep. Music is powerful.
Yeah,
Especially-
I'm thinking of
especially
my
at this
daughter's
season.
concerts. You know, they're all singing these things, and it's seeping in there, and we can hope that these seeds are the things that get watered later on, you know, especially for the stranger to the Christmas. So yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we're drawing towards the end of our time, so I also wanted to give an opportunity to Pastor Matt in the fact that we also discussed how hard it is to narrow it down to one of our favorite songs, or maybe there's a fun one that we enjoy at Christmas time. So is there another Christmas song that's maybe on your heart or that you just have fun with?
Yeah. You know, there's a couple. If I can break the tradition there, even before it starts, you know, I've made a couple. But I enjoy that there's a new Katy Perry song, and it's really only a couple of years old, but it's really talking about you don't need all the stuff. I just want to be cozy up with you, you know. And I'm just thinking of this time of isolation, of all the things that we're sort of giving up, and some of those big tapestries of our holiday traditions. I wish I could have more, but I'm content with just being with, you know, my family and wrap my arms around my wife and daughter and enjoying Christmas, because the story of Christ's birth doesn't change. And so that's just kind of a fun one that's kind of come on. So I'm not like bored of it yet. You know, it's still kind of new. I'm in the kitchen so I can hear Alexa playing it, you know. But I also have to say another one that I really like is it kind of takes it to a different place, because we all understand that things are going to be celebrated different this year for most of us. I also have to understand that one of the rich traditions that I've had in the churches that I've been at, whether it's been attending before I became a pastor or since then, has been taking time to acknowledge that the holidays, some people don't even put up a Christmas tree because it's not an easy time to celebrate, or they're reminded of when people aren't there anymore, and, you know, tragic things happen along the holidays, just makes it really hard to celebrate. So it's often a good thing that we pause, and I hope I don't lose any grace here, but I appreciate what Elvis brought to the table, but I'm not a real big fan of Elvis.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, but he sang a song that he kind of made famous called Blue Christmas. And because I don't like him, his styling of music, Seymour Swine sang a version of Blue Christmas that I was hoping to share with you briefly. And we'll see what we can do. It might not be as good as you've heard, but I was wondering if I could share that a little bit. So we can lift up those that are having a difficult time, but maybe in a way to celebrate that life is good and we're still blessed amongst all the things that we have going on. Is that okay? Do we have time, Matt, or is that something we can edit out if it's horrible?
Sure, we can go ahead. Who doesn't want to hear anything from Seymour Swine?
I don't know if I prefer Elvis, but okay.
Here we go. Blue Christmas, without you. I'll be so blue. Just thinking about you. Decorations of on a green Christmas tree. It won't be the same, dear, if you're not here without me. And when those blue snowflakes start falling, and those blue memories start calling, you'll be doing all with your Christmas blue Christmas. Oh, baby, I miss you. He'll be doing all with your Christmas and be a blue, it'll be a blue, 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 blue Christmas. The end.
The bar has been set.
Yeah. Oh my.
Woo! Give it my week, man. Woo!
Woo.
Is Seymour a relative of Porky Pig or?
Yeah, kind of a generation of hams that we have in the family.
Well, I'm not quite sure where to take this from there, and hence you can see why we brought him on to the Good News Gang, because that was priceless. That was wonderful, my brother.
Yes,
Yes, thank you.
I am at a loss for words now.
which doesn't happen very often. So,
No.
you know.
But it is time for us to wrap up this episode of the Good News Gang Christmas edition. And I want to just, before we sign off, give any of my other colleagues the opportunity to share a closing thought before we sign off. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
No.
No.
There you have it. It's good to be back.
That's all.
We are so grateful for this opportunity to come together. And like always, we hope this sparks conversation in your own homes, whether it be about Hark, the Herald Angels Sings this week, or any of the other songs we bring forth in the weeks to come. But it is good to be back with all of you and with everybody who enjoys what we put together. But until next time, peace be with you.